So, hello everyone, namaste, and thank you for being here today. I hope that you're not jet-lagged as we are, so hopefully you can carry on presentation. So, my name is Kostas and this is Deepika, and today we'll share with you our insights from a study that we conducted last year in India when I was a member of Open Lab. And the title of our talk is a real-time IVR platform for community radio. So, this is not our story. This is the story of Shetal, a 29-year-old mother of two, who resides in a small village in the north part of India. She has been recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and she is afraid that this will be a lifelong sentence that will restrain her from going on with her everyday life. Shetal is extremely grateful to Deepti, who is the local midwife, Asha, for her help, guidance, and support in managing her illness. But at the same time, she understands that Deepti is extremely busy, as she is only one of the 4 Ashas from a population of 3,000 people. Shetal has a mobile phone, but does not have access to internet, since she cannot afford it. She is also semi-illiterate. She would like to be able to discuss her concerns and pathways towards managing her type 2 diabetes with other members of the community. She knows of a couple of her neighbors who go through the same hardships as herself, and she would like a professional's opinion. So the question that we pose to ourselves is, how can we help Shetal to better manage her illness through a free community-led service that does not require significant effort on her behalf? Recent health research, particularly in India, has demonstrated the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, for example, type 2 diabetes, specifically in rural India. The problem that we are trying to address through this project relates to the self-management of chronic illnesses in resource-limited settings, that is, areas with low internet connectivity, and different socioeconomic circumstances, for example, prevalence of illiteracy and lack of skills. Within resource-limited settings, previous research has highlighted the value of asynchronous voice platforms in sharing knowledge around farming practices, motivating citizens to engage more with local communities through citizen-led participation, as well as other important life topics such as employment opportunities. What they all have in common is the support for community-based discussions amongst users. However, the main challenge that they face relates to the poor user experience that can be manifested through tedious and drawn-out interactions with extensive menu structures. Within the context of community health platforms, numerous works have focused on better understanding the role of asynchronous digital technologies in supporting different health conditions. These works have used SMS, as well as IVR, interactive voice response systems, as the main mediums for assisting individuals in sharing their knowledge and concerns, as well as finding key pathways that relate to their self-management. For example, push notifications have been used extensively to support individuals. So the question that we pose resonates from the fact that there exists little understanding on the role of synchronous IVR systems to support community health in resource-limited settings. Given the complicated nature of this project, we stepped back and conducted a series of design workshops that tried to understand the role of mobile technologies in supporting the self-management of chronic illnesses. 37 individuals in 3 rural communities in the south part of India participated in these workshops. We invited women, local women, some of whom were accompanied by their primary carer, to participate in a series of activities, including role play and low-fidelity prototyping, to explore experiences, needs, and values relating to the self-management of the type 2 diabetes. What we found out was that participants wanted to connect with others who are living in the same condition, to trust the information that was shared, and this was manifested by the importance of local community health workers who are locally known as ANMs, as well as midwives, which are called ASHAs, and a system that is free at the point of access and provides equal participation to low literate or illiterate population. Given this design space, we began exploring concepts relating to community-led radio, chat shows which are prevalent and highly successful in rural areas of India, as demonstrated by the recent efforts the last 4 to 5 years. We recognize the key role of A&M and ASAs within the community healthcare, and we aim to create a technology design that will support them in planning and hosting radio chat shows based on the community's health needs. We saw unique advantages of using an IVR system as the pillar of the technology, since they are both prevalent and popular, as well acceptable by local rural Indian users. We developed a very first instance of our system called Sehat Kivani through a commercially available VoIP platform to explore possible interactions and experiences through a medium fidelity prototype. We invited the previous workshop participants whom we asked to enact mock chat shows with the help of the ASHAs, the A&Ms, and a medical practitioner. Contrary to our initial concerns, the participants were willing to share experiences with others, ask questions, and voice their opinions. Quite a few times the interaction was chaotic, where numerous individuals were trying to speak at once or separate conversations with others while in call. Can you hear the audio? The audio? No? Can you hear? So what I'll do now is I will hand over to Deepika, who will walk us through Sehat Kivani's architecture and the main findings of our study.
So we took all the learnings from these design workshops and applied to the second iteration of Sehat Kivani. And going back to the story, let us see how Shetal can access to the professional opinion and connect with the community. So she comes to know about an upcoming show on food habits and quickly registers with Deepti, the local Asha. Deepti, who is going to host the show with the help of a guest, who in most cases is a medical professional, registers interested listeners who are community members like Shetal and prepares for the show. She also creates a trailer for the show, which she sends to Shetal the day before the show. So let's hear to that audio excerpt.
आप सबका इस रेडियो शो में स्वागत है। तो हम सब आपके साथ इस रेडियो शो के द्वारा शुगर में होने वाली प्रॉब्लम्स के साथ थोड़ी सी बातचीत करेंगे।
Finally, she broadcasts the show on the scheduled day, and when Shetal receives the call and joins. Shetal trusts Deepti and feels comfortable in sharing her thoughts, as well as listening to other community members who are expressing their views. At the end of the show, Shetal feels more hopeful since she gets to know a bit more information about how to manage her health condition. So Sehat Kivani is based on client-server architecture, having two different types of clients. The first one is radio host. Radio host client runs on a smartphone, is an Android application that requires internet connectivity. It communicates over SIP protocol with the backend. And the listener client, which is a low-end mobile phone that simply receives a call and gives input in form of DTMFs. The backend of the platform is hosted on a cloud-based service built upon a number of open source technologies, including FreeSwitch, which is an open source VoIP server. It manages all the telephony side of the platform. It accepts audio from the radio host client and sends it to the listeners using the GSM service. So we deployed our platform in the 2 rural areas of North India within the greater vicinity of Chandigarh with the help of the local medical institute. And we recruited 3 types of participants: radio host, guests, and listeners. The local ASHA and A&M invited individuals from their communities to participate, and in total, 31 participants showed interest in listening to and participating in these radio shows. Okay, and a female clinician who was a member of our research team, she acted as a guest since she had extensive knowledge of both type 2 diabetes and maternal health. For data collection process, we employed different methods and followed a thematic inductive approach in an effort to map the key findings that answered our initial question. Now we are going to focus on the findings, which are the role of confidence in radio show production, keeping the show on the road, and the overall experience of listening and sharing. Across 3 shows in both locations, we observed a slight increase in the number of registered listeners who actually chose to listen to the show by accepting the call from the systems. Furthermore, we also noticed an increase in the number of speaking listeners who chose to dial 1 and verbally participate in the show through asking questions or sharing experience. That demonstrated to us the motivation that these listeners felt. Initially, we had concerns regarding hosting of the show since we asked our host to do something that they had no experience of. They were quite worried that the prototype platform that we had developed would enable them to run a chat show live or not. With experience, they exhibited more confidence with each show, and they worked closely with the team on scripts, as one of the Asha told to us during an informal discussion. So we can hear to that audio excerpt.
रेडियो शो था, उसमें थोड़ा सा ऐसे थोड़ा मन में हर काम करने से पहले मन में कुछ डर रहता है कि ये क्या होगा, इसमें ये कैसे करेंगे हम लोग, किस तरह से लोगों से बात हो सकती है, एक ही टाइम में हम 10 और 15 लोगों से कैसे बात कर सकते हैं, तो थोड़ा सा डर था मन में. तो उन शो के बाद अब जो तीसरा रेडियो शो है उसमें थोड़ा कॉन्फिडेंस हमारा बढ़ा.
Okay. Our second finding about the challenges that we face in keeping the show on the road. So to run a successful show, the host needs to be able to keep the show engaging in the face of unexpected events and complications. There were a couple of occasions during the shows when there would be no interaction going on from the other end, and we called these points as black holes. So they typically occurred when the listeners did not opt to ask the question after the host had completed the introduction, when the host was not sure how to respond to listeners' question, and when there were significant technical difficulties. During our first show, after this Chandigarh host had completed the introduction, there were no callers on the line. She repeated many times, "Hello, please press 1," but received no reply, as we can hear in this following audio excerpt. Yep. Yeah, and for listeners, the act of listening and sharing provided answer to the questions and comfort through the act of connecting. Nevertheless, the act of listening was quite cumbersome due to poor telephony network that led to audibility issues like ghost voices in between, background noises. And there was also lack of communication about the waiting time for a caller and show status in the times of technical difficulties. So during the second show in Chandigarh, after the host had completed the introduction, a listener pressed 1 at the end, and she then had to wait 12 minutes before she was invited by the host to participate. By the time host invited her, she had already hung up. And for those who were able to contribute, their contributions fell into 2 main categories. One, asking question, and another is sharing experiences. And majority of the listeners sought to solicit medical advice. And those who were able to share and participate, they declared the benefits of doing so to others. It enabled them to feel connected and committed to themselves to continue their efforts in managing their health condition. So it's over to Kostas to continue with the discussion part.
So for the last 4 minutes or so, reflecting on our findings, we would like to position them within the recent literature in an effort to draw their significance. Sehat Kivani was designed to offer communities opportunities to create informal localized support networks, similar to the work of Grimes et al. Back in 2008. Our hope was that the local cultural context guides structure and the contents of the show. However, we noticed that users utilized shows differently, as they were seeking formal information from the expert, the radio host. Our hope also was that the technical difficulties could be surpassed. However, quite a few technical difficulties in enabling synchronous communication through IVR were still apparent throughout the deployment. Lastly, our hope was that the simple interface could assist in the hosting of the live shows, but we realized that hosting live shows does entail quite a few interactional and personal challenges by the host. Having said that, there were quite a few numerous advantages that Sehat Kivani exemplified for synchronous IVR for community health over asynchronous. For the A&M and the ASHA, it was about giving the same information to a larger number of interested registered individuals at the same time, rather than having to repeat advice over and over again. The shows also offered relief and comfort to the listeners. And generally, it was about the capability of creating highly local peer support systems within communities. We have 3 lessons for interaction design. First of all, we do acknowledge that Sehat Kivani utilized an extremely simple interface, which showed pretty much the duration of the show, the number of current listeners, the number of listeners who are waiting to speak, and the mute or unmute affordance. The deployment of Sehat Kivani unearthed numerous challenges with hosting and listening and contributing in the shows, particularly in the presence of different infrastructural issues and little experience or training. The first lesson related to supporting the host in managing the listeners. We proposed that the radio host client could make use of color, shape, and simple client-side animation. For example, a circle that could grow in size and indicate the time that the listener has waited. We also suggest considering the importance of oral cues that should be communicated to the listener so that she is aware that the connection with the show is established and they will soon speak. Finally, the lack of stable quality of network service in resource-limited settings resulted in the prevalence of black holes. Pre-recording the content and merging synchronous with asynchronous that can be integrated to the show with a push of a button can be something that addresses this problem. We see Sehat Kivani as only the first step towards a fully scalable and community-led medium for self-managing one's health in resource-limited settings across the world. We envision a world where digital technologies can fully support individuals to manage their illness through peer engagement and the careful guidance and assistance of professionals in the local settings. At the end of the day, it is not about us, it is about Shetal, her family, and the community. We have commenced on a journey that we are very much looking forward to. At this point, I would like to thank all the funding agencies, and would like to particularly thank all the communities that we worked with, and the hard work of all the Indian research assistants, as well as the guidance of Dr. Singh from IIIT, Dr. Duggal from PGI, and Dr. Balaam from Open Lab. And I will take any questions whatsoever. Wow, okay. Someone is coming. Okay, 2 people, 3.
I have a very quick question. Instead of dialing in their question, have you thought of using what they were using already by using WhatsApp and just upload their voice question? I mean, it would have been not synchronous, but asynchronous, so they would not have had to wait.
Yes. So the easy response to your question is that we're not trying to replace asynchronous. We are adding on the existing palette of communication mediums that the populations have. But at the same time, quite a few of those settings, the internet connection was really, really bad.
Sure.
We haven't done a study on that, on specifically WhatsApp and the pre-recorded content, but yeah. But generally speaking, and addressing your question, we're not here to replace asynchronous. We're just thinking of giving the opportunity for individuals to have an additional communication medium.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Hello,
Kostas, for the presentation. I couldn't understand why the connection between moving from North India to South India and then moving back to North India. So
you want the easy one or the complicated
Whatever
one?
is comfortable for you.
The easy one is that, okay. The easy one is it's actually quite complicated. We just wanted to pretty much generalize the findings and see if they apply in a completely different context. I can tell you the complicated one in person later.
Okay. I have another suggestion.
Sure.
When you found these black holes, maybe having some asynchronous connections between the radio person and the community people could help, and then in those, when there are black holes, then you can just broadcast those asynchronous.
Absolutely, and it's something that we're currently thinking about.
Okay,
Thanks so much, Dipti.